Anyone that's been the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets and when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome into the College Football Today recap show here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Dubs Anderson, joined by Rich Cirminello from out there on the East Coast. And Rich, Week 6 has absolutely turned it on. Coming in to this slate of college football, didn't have the highest of expectations, but wow, what a Saturday afternoon we have had. We've seen it all. Upset of the season in Nashville. The Aggies taming the Tigers. And what about Ashton Genty run himself towards that Heisman Trophy? But happy Saturday, Rich. How's things?
Things are great, man. I have enjoyed every moment going back to the Friday night games. But today, a little bit of shake-up Saturday, Dubs. Number 9 goes down. Number 10 goes down. Number 11, USC, just lost to Minnesota. I said to you before we came on air, not sure what the under-over was for the times that fans would storm the field today, but I'm pretty sure it went over because we saw goalposts come down at Vanderbilt. We just saw the Minnesota fans storm the field. It's, to your point, a lot of times when the expectations aren't that high, we don't have those marquee games. Week 7, next week, we'll see Ohio State at Oregon. We didn't have a game of that caliber this weekend, but boy, this weekend sure did deliver.
And Rich, I'm throwing it all out the window. You know, going into last week, I thought Georgia was number 1 in the nation. Well, Bama solidified their top dog status, and now after this evening, who knows who's going to finish up on top. But let's start with the upset of the day, upset of the season, if you will. Vanderbilt over there in Nashville. They get the big score, 40-35 over the Crimson Tide. And I can confirm there is a set of goalposts laying in some river up there in Nashville, and the party continues. 22.5-point favorites. Had to cover 3 touchdowns. Bama couldn't even win this one straight up. They're behind from the jump, and they never really got back into this one, Rich. Watching this game play out, I thought surely the luck is going to come to a halt here for Vanderbilt late in this game. It just never happened.
Yeah, I mean, a few takeaways. First off, I wish I saw this one coming. I did not. I mean, it's fair to say, Dubs, we've been following sports for many years. Let down a possibility, right? I mean, intensity so high in Tuscaloosa last week, that wild finish against Georgia. Bama pulls it out. To your point, they rise to number 1 in the AP poll. So a little bit of letdown in the first half. Okay, that's fine. I understand that. These are still kids. But by the second half, that to me was the stunning part of this, because every time Alabama closed, they got close, they got within one score, Vanderbilt answered. And my big takeaway here is, for every Vanderbilt, for every Minnesota, for every Iowa State, Washington State, Oregon State, every small school in this day and age can rebuild very quickly if you get the right quarterback. And that's exactly what Clark Lee did. He goes to New Mexico State, Diego Pavia. Dubs, he's more than a quarterback. This is a heart and soul type player. He's a glue player. This is the third time in his career that he has been the winning quarterback when his team was more than a 3-touchdown underdog, because he's special. He has given Vandy an identity. They have not had that since James Franklin was in Nashville. I love this kid. What he does to that program is remarkable. Just 2 touchdowns today didn't matter. He was the story, and Clark Lee and what he's done at Vanderbilt has been the story. Just a remarkable win for the Commodores today.
Yeah, great win for the program, and Pavia really special going through that game. We saw it there after the wild scenes, the emotions really coming to the surface, and rightfully so. This is their time in the spotlight. Vandy, 60 straight losses against top 5 opponents, coming into that big one against the Crimson Tide, and they come up out on top. In terms of what you saw from Alabama, Rich, what's the biggest takeaway? Do you just put it down to being a trap game? You know, they're caught napping after a big one last week going against Georgia, or are there a couple of other things that maybe they're going to have to address going forward if they do want to be a national championship contender?
Which they can still be, by the way. I think there's plenty of time, especially in the era of a 12-team playoff. To me, it's defense, Dubs. I mean, Alabama, going back to the Nick Saban days, was always built at the line of scrimmage. It was a defensive-driven team. Offense has picked up in recent years. Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones. You know, they've been putting up points in recent seasons. Jalen Milroe now. But the defense has always been able to deliver in Tuscaloosa. And every time they needed a stop in Nashville, they couldn't get it done. And if you go back to the Georgia game, 27 points in the second half against Georgia, 40 today against Vanderbilt. So last 6 quarters, 67 points allowed. Very un-Alabama-like, but very Kalen DeBoer-like. If you look at that Washington team last year, defense was good in spurts, but vulnerable. It's the reason why they couldn't beat Michigan in the national championship game. So if Alabama's going to turn things around, not just get to the playoffs, but possibly win a national championship, they have got to get better at the line of scrimmage. And man, they have to start making stops on defense, or this is going to be a rough second half of the season as it pertains to their playoff chase.
Almost halfway through the season, maybe that was the wake-up call they needed there going through week 6. Let's turn it back to Friday night. We will talk a little Bama in further depth, especially when it comes to the futures odds there for the national championship. But let's turn it back to Friday night up there in Eugene. The Oregon Ducks, number 6, 31-10 over the Spartans. Pretty impressive performance. And one of the Heisman contenders, Dylan Gabriel, put on an absolute show there. 257 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, but also a couple of mistakes, a couple of interceptions there as well, but never really let the Spartans into this one.
Yeah, to me, the most impressive thing, and I'll package this part of the show, it's not just Oregon, it's Ohio State. I think both of these teams had the potential to be looking at a look-ahead moment. You mentioned Oregon, Michigan State, that game in Eugene Friday night, and then Ohio State today against Iowa. Both of those teams took care of business. Before next week's big showdown in Eugene between Ohio State and Oregon, one of the games of the year for me, Oregon, Jordan James on the ground, very impressive for the Ducks. And then defensively, Jordan Birch on the edge, 6'6", 295 pounds, former blue chip 5-star recruit, never really did it at South Carolina for Shane Beamer. Now at Oregon for Dan Lanning, he's starting to look like he could be a day 1, day 2 type draft pick in 2025. Couple of sacks against Michigan State. Interesting seeing Dan Lanning against Jonathan Smith. Last year it was Civil War, Oregon State. Now it's Oregon, Michigan State. Can't wait for that game next weekend. I am a big Dylan Gabriel fan. I think there's still an opportunity when it comes to the Heisman for him. Been a little spotty in spots, especially early in September. But you look at that team, you look at the talent, the precision that he throws with, almost an 80% completion percentage this year. I think if he could win some of these big games beginning next weekend, I think he's got a legitimate shot, not just to be in New York, but to actually win the Heisman.
Yeah, good call there, Rich. Before we hit a little timeout, also there on Friday night, OT thriller between Syracuse and UNLV. It was Syracuse coming up on top 44-41. Rallies late at that one to get the chocolates. Who was the standout for you?
Yeah, LaQuint Allen out of the backfield for Syracuse. 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 touchdowns through the air. Love his versatility. I'll take it off the field. Kyle McCord played really well, the Syracuse quarterback. Fran Brown, never been a head coach before. Kid from New Jersey, Camden. Great recruiter throughout his career. Spent time at Georgia. Did a really good job hauling talent down in Athens. 4-1 to start his career. Don't see that very often. Usually a guy who's been an assistant throughout his career takes a little time before he gets humming. UNLV hot. That game was in Las Vegas, 25th in the country. Big win for Syracuse, 4-1, just 2 wins away from bowl eligibility now.
Orange get it done, 44-41. The total going into kickoff was 54.5 points projected, so well and truly blown towards the overs there with that total. And for the old Rebels, they went off as 5.5-point favorites, couldn't get the win straight up. So well done to Syracuse, and for the Rebels, both teams now sitting at 4-1 through this point of the season. With that, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side, we continue to talk all the big takeaways from Week 6 and the college football. Stick with us, SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the College Football Today recap show here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Dubs Anderson. That is Rich Cirminello. And Rich, let's talk Nittany Lions. Penn State come up with a big performance without being fantastic. I feel like it's it's not enough to just get the win. They win 27-11 at this point of the season. We're looking for style points. Were there enough on offer for this Big Ten showdown between Penn State and UCLA for you?
I guess. For me with Penn State, I hate to keep the bar too high, but James Franklin's been there long enough. That staff has recruited 4- and 5-star players long enough. What I want to see from Penn State is, can you catch up to Ohio State in the Big Ten? And the beef I have with James Franklin is big games, he comes up short. Whether it was Michigan or Ohio State, he just has not been able to deliver throughout his career in Happy Valley. So, yeah, you're supposed to beat UCLA. UCLA might be the worst team in the Big Ten this season. No offense in Deshaun Foster's debut at his alma mater. So, yeah, it's an okay win, but I still need to see more from Drew Aller, from that offense. No Nicholas Singleton out of the backfield today. But at the end of the day, Penn State is too good, Dubs, to not be getting to the playoffs this year and competing for a national championship. That's where I have the bar set. So whether it's Ohio State, the Oregons, the Michigans, of the boosted up Big Ten right now, I need to see more from Penn State moving forward.
Yeah, and that's the tough point of where we land at this point in the season, Rich, really trying to take away from some of these victories. What do they really mean in terms of style points? Have they picked up enough along the way? But they're certainly going to get a very big test taking on the Trojans, USC next week. I'm not going to put you on the spot there, but if you had to have an early lean for Week 7, USC going against the Nittany Lions out here on the West Coast, where would it be?
I would lean towards Penn State, and I'll tell you why. I think the physicality on both lines of scrimmage really is advantage Penn State. I know it's a road game. I like what Miller Moss has been doing, but look at USC tonight. It's an average Minnesota team. They can't get out of Minneapolis with a win. Defense has improved, but I still think there's room for growth. Give me Penn State. Abdul Carter, one of the offseason developments that really kind of was on my radar was Tom Allen being hired as the defensive coordinator, Dubs. And the first thing he did, former Indiana head coach, first thing he did was said, Abdul Carter belongs closer to the line of scrimmage. Yeah, he's a linebacker. We need him off the edge. That speed that he has, the explosiveness, his ability to impact the pocket, we need to get more from him. And that's exactly what they've gotten. So whether it's Danny Dennis-Sutton, Abdul Carter, that team is loaded with defensive playmakers. I think that's a problem for the USC offensive line. Give me Penn State. USC, to me, still a while to go. I'd love your take on Lincoln Riley. I mean, I'm a fan of what he does offensively, but is Lincoln Riley the kind of coach out in LA that you think could eventually win a national championship?
I don't think so. I'm not the biggest of fans. I think he's under a lot of pressure. I think they've exceeded expectations. Defense has certainly taken a forward step this season. You highlighted Miller Moss at quarterback. He's been strong without being, a stat stuffer, if you will. So for me, USC, the season is now for Lincoln Riley. Show us a little something. Get the Trojans into the promised land. And for them, it is a very strong spot they're going against next week. If they cannot get it done against Penn State, that may be their season well and truly over. And maybe it will be the last year here in Tinseltown for Lincoln Riley, if you will. But looks to be an absolute doozy of a matchup coming up Week 7 next week. But let's turn it to another fantastic showdown we saw in the SEC earlier today. It was the Aggies, number 25 in the nation, Texas A&M toppling the Missouri Tigers. This was an impressive rout out there at College Station. It was expected to be a close one. The odds makers had it at 2.5-point favorites towards the home team in the Aggies. 41-10 was the end score. So we get the overs there as well. And for the Tigers, they just didn't come ready to play, Rich. They were scoreless through the first half, and they were never in this game.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you brought this one up. I thought when we were going to be on the air tonight, this would be the biggest game. This would be the most impressive SEC team. Obviously, Vandy flipped the script on that. But don't discount what Texas A&M did. This looked like a matchup of even teams. Missouri comes in number 9. A&M was on the back end of the top 25. This, to me, Dubs, is all about Mike Elko. Go back to what Mike Elko did at Duke. Didn't take long for him to completely turn around the mess that he inherited from from David Cutcliffe in Durham. And all of a sudden, with Riley Leonard at quarterback, Duke was winning 8-9 games and in bowl games. This is year one at Texas A&M. He inherited a mess from Jimbo Fisher, and all of a sudden, A&M is climbing up the top 25. And perhaps if the SEC gets 4, 5, maybe as many as 6 teams into the playoffs, look at that Texas A&M schedule. Until you get to the Longhorns at the end of the season, which you want to talk about doozies, that is going to be an epic matchup between those two hated rivals. A&M does not have a game in which they're going to be an underdog until you get to the end of November. Connor Wegman is back under center. Marcel Reed, the true freshman, did a great job in his place. But Wegman is a next-level quarterback. If he could stay healthy, he's going to play on Sundays. That defense has been fantastic. And the way they shut down Brady Cook, Luther Burden, one of the best wide receivers in the country, again, setting aside Vandy, that's in a category of its own today. But in terms of Week 6, A&M, as impressive as any team on the schedule today, what they did to Mizzou, extraordinarily impressive. They take a lot of momentum into the second half of the season.
Yeah, they made the Tigers secondary look pretty ordinary there as well. So you already highlight Connor Wegman. He is the quarterback to give him the best chance moving through the rest of the season. He was a game-time decision, but taking a look at that production, 512 yards of total offense there for the Aggies. And the run game was pretty strong as well. Le'Veon Moss, 12 carries, 138 yards, and 3 house calls. So suddenly, Texas A&M, they could be a very tough out moving through a pretty light schedule there for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. I can see they got LSU in a couple. That should be a fantastic matchup over there in Baton Rouge. So Texas A&M toppled the Tigers. That was one of the games of the day, 41-10. Aggies cover, and we get the overs there as well. We're taking a quick break. The college football talk continues on the other side.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the College Football Today recap show here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Dubs Anderson. That is Rich Cirminello, and we continue to break down and talk all key takeaways from Week 6 here of the college football slate. Let's talk a little more Big Ten, Rich. The Buckeyes, 35-7 over the Iowa Hawkeyes. If you look at that score, you'd say, okay, they kept them at arm's length for most of this one. It was pretty comfortable without running away from them, but it was only 7-0 at the halftime break. So number 3 in the nation really struggled from the get-go, but they finally find a bit of offense there in the third, led by star quarterback Will Howard, who goes for 209 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and just having the 1 interception.
Yeah, Will Howard comes over from Kansas State. Great kid, someone I've gotten to know personally, good off the field, on the field, just a great family from Pennsylvania. Hell of a football player, too. Today, Dubs, more touchdown passes than incompletions. As you mentioned, threw for 4, ran for 1, just 4 incompletions. I think it was 21 of 25. I'd have to double check that. But yeah, listen, I don't think there's and we do have another storming of the field, by the way. Arkansas upsets number 4 Tennessee. So we have some fans on the field there. Yeah,
Cash the overs, Rich. You've hit that one.
Crushing the overs on that one. Yeah, so I think where were we? I lost my train of thought as I'm watching the end of the Tennessee game.
We're talking about star quarterback Will Howard for the Buckeyes. Good kid off the field, but very efficient play today.
Yeah, and listen, it's slow start against Iowa. That Iowa defense, that's the best secondary that I think Will Howard will face all year. I mean, you've got multiple next-level players, multiple NFL players in that Iowa secondary. Iowa offensively suspect, but yeah, Ohio State pulled away 3 touchdown receptions for Emeka Egbuka from Will Howard. So I think that's an impressive win. I have no problem with that. Again, look ahead potential with Oregon next weekend. Defense played well. You've got those 2 big running backs in Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, and Dubs, how about Jeremiah Smith? How about the true freshman wide receivers in general this year? If you're looking for a wide receiver and you're an NFL GM 3 years from now, Cam Coleman at Auburn, Ryan Williams, we saw from Alabama what he could do last weekend and today, a couple of touchdowns, and Jeremiah Smith, who already looks like a Sunday wide receiver, and he's just 18 years old. So these kids, they're growing up so quickly.
And Rich, on that note, you've covered this great game for some time. Has it ever been like this in the past? Is this just an outlier of some really good, young, talented wide receivers, coming in for their first year in the college ranks? Or is it a sign of the times that these young guys are just developing a little quicker?
I think it's the latter, Dubs. I think we've been seeing this now for the past 4 or 5 years, that high school kids, the preparation, not just on the field, but off the field, but certainly on the field too, the training that takes place, the camps that they go to, the all-star games where they get next level type coaching as 16 and 17-year-olds. These kids are phenomenally mature, both physically and mentally. They have never been more ready to contribute to college football, especially at a skill position like wide receiver. So I think it is a trend. I think you're going to continue to see it. Spend some time with Jeremiah Smith back in March down in Atlanta at an event. And the one thing that really stood out to me is physically, obviously 6'3", very gifted, speedy wide receiver. But this kid prepares about as well as anyone I've ever spoken to. This kid cares about the routes that he runs. He cares about knowing the playbook. He is a technician. He has a high football IQ. And when you combine that with his physical skills, no surprise that he's playing at a big level teenager. So it's been a phenomenal season for wide receivers. I think this is a sign of the times and a sign of things to come.
Ohio State get it done. Pretty impressive there in the Big Ten tilt. Now, we're not going to have enough time before we hit the break, but I'm going to ask you a real simple question. Yes or no answer. Georgia got the win 31-13 over the Auburn Tigers. Rich, are the Bulldogs back? Was this enough to say that the Bulldogs are back being a big threat?
I'll say no, and I know we're going to a break, but I'll just say something feels like it's missing in this team. We could talk about it on the other side of the break, but this does not seem like the quintessential Georgia team that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years.
They had that wake-up call last week going against Bama. They get the score today, but we'll jump into this one a little further after the break. 31-13 over the Tigers. They were 3-touchdown favorites just failed to cover that number. So what does it mean for Georgia going forward? And who do they have on their radar going through the next 2 to 3 weeks? We'll break it all down on the other side. You're watching College Football Today, the recap show here on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the College Football Today recap show, talking all big takeaways from Week 6, the Saturday slate. What a super Saturday it was. I'm Dubs. That is Rich. And Rich, before we hit that quick timeout, we're talking the Georgia Bulldogs, one of the top teams in the nation. They got the win today over the Tigers, 31-13, and they needed every bit of it. They didn't cover the number, but Carson Beck, your star quarterback for Georgia, puts up 240 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, very efficient. Trevor Etienne was setting the table with that run game. But I asked you the question, is this enough for you to say, yes, the Bulldogs are back, or did we lack the win in convincing fashion? Are there still a couple of weaknesses that I guess we need to highlight from what we saw last week and coming back into today?
Yeah, I think it's that. I think for me, there's still a hangover effect from the Alabama loss. Defensively, when you have a Kirby Smart coach team, I expect to see more from that defensive line, more pressure in opposing backfields. When Georgia was winning back-to-back national championships, you had those types of players at the line of scrimmage that were dominant. They dictated the game. They made it very difficult, if not impossible, to beat Georgia. I haven't seen that at all this season. And listen, let's not forget, no disrespect to Kentucky. Kentucky beat Ole Miss last week. Mark Stoops is doing a great job in Lexington. But Georgia almost lost to Kentucky. That was a 13-12 game. So some weeks offensively, they don't show up. And then some weeks like last weekend, didn't show up against Alabama. And by the way, that Alabama loss, allowing 4 touchdowns on the first 4 drives, doesn't that look even worse now that Vanderbilt just upset the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, it really does. And things don't get a lot easier for Georgia. Mississippi State next week, that'll be a decent game. And then it's number 2 in the nation, taking on the Texas Longhorns over there in Austin. That is going to be a fantastic matchup.
Yeah, I totally agree. I almost forgot about that game coming up for Georgia. If Georgia wants to declare, Dubs, that they're back and we're ready to be an SEC, a national championship contender, go out and beat Texas. I mean, that's what I need to see at this point. You didn't take care of business. Nice rally by Carson Beck in the second half last week. Didn't take care of business against Alabama. Well, here comes Texas, and I'm assuming it's going to be Texas led by a healthy Quinn Ewers. But if it's Arch Manning, that's fine too, because nobody has a better quarterback situation in the country than the Longhorns do. Defensively, they're playing well. They've been able to overcome the loss of their top running back, C.J. Baxter, in the offseason. So I love what Sark is doing. I'm a fan of him personally. If I had a kid playing college football, he's the kind of coach I'd love to see my son playing for. So I kind of soft root for Sark, and he's done a great job so far. So that'll be a litmus test for Georgia. Georgia, if you're ready to compete for a national championship, here's Texas in a couple of weeks. I'm assuming they'll take care of business against MSU. Beat Texas, and then we could talk.
Yeah, that's going to be the referendum spot indeed. A nice little matchup in the SEC today. The Ole Miss Rebels taking down the Gamecocks, take down South Carolina 27-3. They were leading 24-3 at the halftime break, and then 3 points scored in the second half. So we had all these exciting games for Week 6 on the Saturday afternoon. This one was a little underwhelming, but the Rebels got the score.
Yeah, nice bounce back. And that's what we needed to see from Lane Kiffin's team. Tough loss last week. I mentioned the Kentucky loss, first loss of the year for the Rebels. And listen, Williams-Brice Stadium in South Carolina, tough place to win. It's one of the loudest and one of the nastiest road spots in the SEC. And 27-3, that to me is a nice bounce back. You got great play from the defense. You shut down the South Carolina offense. Not much from Jackson Dart as he begins to slip a little further back in the Heisman rankings and the Heisman odds. But your defense led the way. That's fine. On an afternoon that your offense didn't really contribute much, Trey Harris didn't have a big day, the wide receiver. The defense took care of business. You win a road game in the SEC. That's great. And one thing I almost forgot. How ironic is it that 2 weeks ago, you want to talk about rat poison and Nick Saban? What did Nick Saban say about Vanderbilt? Did you happen to see that with Pat McAfee? 2 weeks ago, he said there's only one spot in the SEC that is not a difficult road place to go to. And of course, it's Vanderbilt. I mean, how ironic is that? And you want to talk about bulletin board material for Vandy. That one really backfired for the former Alabama coach.
Yeah, it's been fantastic getting that insight from Nick Saban on the desk as well. They're going through College Game Day, all of the lead up, but absolutely, we thought he called that one. Wasn't the case for the Crimson Tide. That was the shock of the afternoon. Vandy taking down Bama. A couple of the late games have now gone official, so we can jump into a couple of these, Rich, and get your thoughts. We were talking Lincoln Riley a little earlier in the show. I tell you what, it doesn't get any better for USC fans. 24-17, Minnesota, the Golden Gophers take down the Trojans. They put up 2 touchdowns there in the fourth quarter. Max Brosma, the quarterback, he was strong without being electric, but it really was the run game. Darius Taylor setting the table there for Minnesota. And for USC, second loss of the season. I know we've got the expanded playoffs, Rich, but they're now going uphill, up against it after this one.
Yeah, no margin for error from here if we're talking about the playoffs. And it's USC. I think we should be talking about the playoffs. Like, that to me is the expectation. This is one of the top shelf, name brand programs in college football. I know it's going to get harder in the 18-team Big Ten. This is not the Pac-12 any longer. But even in the Pac-12, Lincoln Riley was falling behind the likes of Oregon and Utah. I mean, Kyle Whittingham had Lincoln Riley's numbers. So I think, listen, if they beat Penn State next week, are the playoffs a possibility? Yes. But no margin for error moving forward for USC. I love, Dubs, that you brought up Darius Taylor. He's one of my favorite running backs in the country. Enjoyed watching him as a true freshman last year. Struggled to stay healthy. Is not a very big back, but you watched him tonight both as a runner and a receiver. He was the best player on the field for Minnesota. And I mentioned it in our first block about the importance of transfer quarterbacks. Max Brosmer played for New Hampshire out of the FCS. PJ Fleck goes into the portal, plucks him out, makes a major upgrade at quarterback. And I'm just going to go a little stream of consciousness right now. Michigan in the offseason, you knew what you had at quarterback post J.J. McCarthy. You couldn't go into the portal and get a quarterback who was looking to play on a bigger stage. I mean, you're going with Davis Warren, Jack Tuttle, Alex Orji, none of whom have been able to deliver. Didn't deliver against Washington tonight in a loss. Michigan essentially out of the playoff race. But, I mean, Dubs, what was Sherrone Moore thinking when he did not get a transfer portal quarterback? That, to me, was negligence on his part.
Yeah, looking nothing like your defending champions, the national champions, the Huskies making mincemeat of them, 27-17. The Wolverines now dropping 2 games for the year, in a similar tone to the uphill battle that the Trojans are going to be facing. The Wolverines not good enough. We saw both quarterbacks, Jack Tuttle and Orji, getting in the mix there, but in terms of the passing game, they've just got nothing. If the quarterbacks can't get out and use the wheels to get them downfield, they're not in the ball game. They weren't again this evening, and the Huskies get the score. Both teams now sitting 4-2.
Yeah, great win for Washington. Great win for Jed Fish. Big fan of him as a coach. Look at the turnaround that he initiated at Arizona, moves to Washington, and off to a pretty good start. That was a completely overhauled roster for Washington. So the fact that they're 4-2, they just beat the number 10 team in the country, got some revenge for the national championship game. Good start for Jed Fish. Name to keep in mind, by the way, if Billy Napier does not survive in Gainesville, Jed Fish is a Steve Spurrier protege, so he could possibly be moving again very soon.
Nothing but big upsets, standout individual brilliance. And after the break, we're going to jump into a little updated odds futures market there for the national championship. And you're not going to believe it was sitting up on top. I'll give a little tease. Bama, now the 4th choice in the market. Stick around to hear us break it all down for college football today.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
Back into the College Football Today recap show here on the SportsGrid Network. The first weekend in October, week 6, absolutely turning it on. A couple of massive upsets. The Dogs really coming into bark late on a Saturday. I'm Dubs Anderson. That is Rich Cirminello. And Rich, before the break, we teased it. A little update here in the National Championship market at the FanDuel Sportsbook. And I feel like this top 5 does not look like it looked maybe 2-3 hours ago. So I'm going to rattle off the top 5, and you give me the biggest takeaway that you see. Ohio State now sit as the shortest price at plus 300. Georgia at plus 450 as the second choice. We've got Texas at plus 450. We've got Bama now dropping to plus 650. And then quack, it's the Ducks, Oregon sitting at 10-1. Out of all the market movement that we've seen here late on the Saturday for week 6, what's the most shocking one for you?
Bama being below Georgia, I know the Vandy loss is fresh and it's obviously a black mark on Alabama's resume, but Bama really took Georgia behind the woodshed for most of that game last weekend against Georgia. They could not stop Jalen Milroe and that offense. They couldn't stop Ryan Williams, the 17-year-old wide receiver. So I wouldn't bail on Alabama just yet. Kalen DeBoer is still one of the best coaches in the country. He knows how to win. He knows how to win big games. The interesting thing about DeBoer is go back to last season, Dubs, at Washington. He did have a track record of flirting with teams that were heavy underdogs. There was that long run, I think it was about 8 or 9 games that Washington won that were decided by 10 points or less. A lot of those teams were heavy underdogs, the Arizona States, the Arizonas, the Washington States. So there is a bit of a track record with Kalen DeBoer that he plays to the level of the competition, because after last weekend's game against Georgia, 13-2 against top 25 opponents. So, against the best teams on the schedule, he delivers. Against the weaker ones, he often doesn't cover. Something to keep in mind as we move forward. I am not ready to throw dirt on Alabama. I think they'll recover and be fine. I'm not sold on Georgia right now. Still need to see more from the Dogs.
Georgia plus 450 there as the second choice. Week 6 is almost in the books. We've got the game up there at Berkeley. We'll give a couple of score updates and last thoughts before we finish up at the top of the hour. But if we went 6 weeks back in time, we got in a little, Back to the Future car, Rich, and I asked you prior to the season, who would you be shocked about these top 5 betting choices over here at the FanDuel Sportsbook that you didn't think would be here that's exceeded expectations? Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, Bama, and Oregon.
I probably, believe it or not, would say Texas. Just because in August I was on shows with Scotty Farrell, and I remember really dogging Texas. I just wasn't sold that the Longhorns didn't lose too much at the skill position. They lost those 2 big defensive tackles, T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, to the first, I think it was first or second round of the NFL draft back in April. I didn't think Texas would recover so quickly, and they have. I've been really impressed. They look like a complete team down in Austin. So Texas playing as well as they are, and I think Texas is probably going to be number 1 in both polls once we get to the beginning of the week. So yeah, I would say Texas. Not a lot of major surprises right now. I think it's going to be very chalky once we get to the playoffs. I don't expect like an Iowa State to make a deep playoff run, or a BYU who's undefeated. I don't expect them to make a deep playoff run. But yeah, give me Texas right now as the biggest surprise.
And as much volatility as we've seen there for the national championship, same could be said for the Heisman market. And a game that we haven't touched on yet, Boise State in the Mountain West, 62-30 over Utah State. For Boise State, it's been one secret to their success. Ginty has been fantastic with that run game. 186 rushing yards today, 3 touchdowns, and this is off 13 carries. I believe he got most of that in the first half as well, Rich. And surprise, surprise, is now the shortest price for the Heisman at plus 220.
Think about this statistically, and he's going to need stats to get to New York because he's playing, for Boise State. It's a Mountain West schedule. A lot of Heisman voters are going to be like, yeah, big deal. You just lit up Utah State. Big deal. You lit up New Mexico or Wyoming, right? So and the best game left on the schedule is UNLV, and UNLV just lost. We talked about the loss against Syracuse on Friday night. He's going to need monster numbers. Think about this, Dubs. Over 1,000 yards in just under 5 games, in under 100 carries. He's averaging over 10 yards a carry. This is legit. I mean, this is a big time, possibly first running back drafted in the 2025 NFL draft. He's got great size. He's got great hands out of the backfield. And what I love most about this kid is the majority of the yards that he picks up are after contact. You hit this kid and he just spins and keeps going. He is a big, thick, physical back, speedy when he gets in the open field. And I'll throw out one more thing. I'll throw one more bouquet at Ashton Jeanty. He could have gone to just about any Power 4 program. The NIL is very lucrative right now. He could have gone into the portal and wound up at just about any school he wanted to. He remained committed to Boise State. I kind of like that. Dance with the one that brought you there. And that's what he's doing. And he might have a Heisman run in him, which would be phenomenal.
They're truly remarkable, the stats that Ashton Jeanty is putting up on the weekly. Plus 220 now as the shortest price, and rightfully so. Travis Hunter for Colorado at plus 320. The two-way superstar. Cam Ward out there in the mix at plus 750. And Jalen Milroe for Bama, star quarterback, drops a bit of stock now as the fourth choice at plus 950. Who's going to be the biggest threat to Jeanty? I know we're going to see a lot of movement between now and once we hit the playoffs, but who's been a standout in this Heisman market for you, Rich?
It's a fascinating race because we don't have a clear-cut favorite at this point. I'll go with my preseason pick, which was Dylan Gabriel. Obviously, a lot's going to hinge on how he plays Saturday against Ohio State, but I still believe in Oregon, and I really like this player, so I'll say Dylan Gabriel as the safest pick right now.
Continues to put up numbers in Miami on the ropes, taking Cal up there at Berkeley. 6 minutes left here in the second, so we're going to hit a quick timeout on the other side. A live score update. It's the late slate for Super Saturday. Stick with us.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I do think they come back, and I think they win this game, but they've got to do it decisively. I think they've got to get that confidence back because they went out there, and like I said earlier, Kentucky almost beat Georgia. Kentucky almost did beat Ole Miss, and I think what you're going to see in this conference, if you don't play well and you're a top 10 team in the SEC, you're going to get knocked out by one of those top 25 teams in the SEC if you're not ready to play.
Powered by SportsGrid.
Back into college football today. The recap show here on the SportsGrid Network. Dubs Anderson alongside Rich Cirminello. And Rich, usually we bring up my betting card of the week, my starting five for the college football slate. I think the team out the back know how mediocre it was this afternoon. 2 for 5, I believe we ended up going. So I don't think we're going to flash this one up. But we do have a... okay, no thanks, boys. There it is. Let's go.
There's no hiding.
I do it to myself. I do it to myself. All right, this is how we did. Aggies get the win. Bama on the spread, 22.5. They did not cover. They did not win straight up. I had Michigan grabbing a 1.5. That didn't work out so well. And USC, I took their team total 27.5. They fall short for this one. We had Tennessee and Arkansas third quarter total over 13.5. So we cashed that one as well. So the Aggies in that third quarter total, they get us a little closer to 500. But 2 for 5 once it was all said and done. So a middling week on the betting side of things. It's not bad. It's definitely not good, but we'll learn from this one. We'll bounce back. Rich, I want to get your thoughts before we get out of here. Up there at Berkeley, Cal lead 21-10. Miami, number 8 in the nation. Have they got enough to rally? Can they make a game of this one? We've still got 4 minutes left as we tape this in the second.
Plenty of time. 21-10, 4:31 left before halftime. Plenty of time. I'm not intimidated by Cal's offense. Love Jaden Ott, their running back, but still young quarterback Fernando Mendoza. I'm just questionable about Mario Cristobal. I mean, his in-game coaching leaves a lot to be desired. We saw that last year. It cost Miami a couple of games, the Georgia Tech game in particular. His time management skills were horrendous. And this looked like a potential trap. You got to go cross-country, a game that is at, 10:30 at night on the East Coast. So this is a very odd one for Miami. And Justin Wilcox and that Bears defense is always good. They've been good this season. He's done a really nice job of dipping into the portal, getting FCS all-stars like Teddy Buchanan, FCS player that a lot of folks don't know. He's having a great start to his first season at Cal. So Cal is very well coached defensively. They know Cam Ward because Cam Ward obviously was a Pac-12 quarterback last couple of years with Washington State. It's going to be interesting because we've seen, the story of the day is Vanderbilt. The second story is how many of these top 10, top 12 teams have lost. Miami's number 8. They're on the ropes. And I'll throw this question out to you. With all of these top 10 teams falling, is there someone who can fill that void? Is it a BYU? Is it an Iowa State? Is it one of those types of schools that are kind of in the middle teens that now have an opportunity? There's a pathway for them to move up an inch closer to the top 10.
Yeah, and you look at the teams that are hovering right around that 10 spot. The Tigers, Mizzou, it was Michigan, and USC, the Trojans, who all falter here in week 6. So a little lackluster display, if you will, for a lot of teams trying to surge in the right direction as we approach the halfway point of the season. Week 7 coming up, Rich. Penn State taking on the Trojans. We've got Texas squaring off against Oklahoma, and Ohio State going against the Ducks, taking on Oregon. What's the matchup you're looking forward to next week, week 7 in college football?
Yeah, Ohio State, Oregon, 7:30 on the East Coast, prime time. That's the game of the weekend. Maybe if not the game of the first half of the year, certainly number 2 behind Georgia and Alabama. Both programs with a lot to show. Ryan Day against Dan Lanning, offensive-minded coach for the Buckeyes, defensive-minded coach for the Ducks. I mentioned, my affection for Dylan Gabriel when it comes to the Heisman Trophy odds. I think a lot of the country that hasn't watched Jeremiah Smith of Ohio State, they're going to really enjoy watching this true freshman. Just the other thing real quick before we wrap it up, Dubs, is Quinn Ewers. Texas against Oklahoma. Does he play? And if he does, how much rust after missing the last couple of games as Arch Manning took over the Longhorns?
Yeah, they got a decent backup if they need one. What do you think, Rich? Is Quinn Ewers certainly going to give him the best chance? It sounds like they're going to stick with him if he is healthy. Yeah? Yeah,
it's 1 and 1A, but I think it's because of the amount of time he has played, the veteran leadership that he brings. I think it is Quinn Ewers is the best option for Texas. But again, if he goes down again, Arch is proving he is ready to take over.
Yeah, one of the best situations in the nation. Big takeaway from week 6 in college football. The number 1 team in the nation goes down. Vanderbilt, the victors. That's Rich Cirminello. I'm Doug Sanderson. Enjoy your weekend.